And Amy, in the Clinton Foundation, Donald Trump has called for a special prosecutor to investigate the Clinton Foundation. And we're learning more and more as more of the contents of Hillary emails leak out, even though Associated Press reporting over the weekend that the State Department said they will not be done scrubbing her schedule for the complete schedule of all of her meetings as Secretary of State to be released before the election. I think that's a problem. But somebody who's been on this case since the beginning, we've spoken to before, is a Wall Street financial expert, Charles Ortel. And he's kind of an independent financial watchdog of sorts. He really came to prominence in 2008, where he uncovered financial discrepancies at General Electric before its stock crashed. And he's been looking at the Clinton Foundation, and he calls it the largest unprosecuted charity fraud in the history of our country, which is a big statement. And now let's get the backup for that big statement. We're happy to be joined again by Charles Ortel. Charles, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
So as you're seeing the drip, drip, drip of additional information about the Clinton Foundation and Bill and Hillary's dealings in the foundation, concurrent with her time as Secretary of State, is there anything that's particularly surprising to you or you think needs to be the focus? You know, there's so much to look at. Where should we be digging deeper?
Well, there's really two simple things. You know, you hear a lot of chatter from the different pundits who have not actually investigated the laws that pertain to charities, public charities that are right now, as we speak, soliciting using the Internet, possibly telephones and mails. If you're going to operate a public charity like the Clinton Foundation, you must make sure that your public filings are not only complete, but true and accurate and not misleading. They can't omit any material facts. And these filings do not include, for any year since October 23, 1997, almost 20 years ago, a legally compliant financial audit. People in your audience who understand accounting and know the rules will know exactly what I mean, and it's very simple to look at this. Go on their website, try to find an audit for 97 through 2004. You won't find it. Without an audit for each year, no subsequent audit is accurate. So that's the first issue. The second thing we hear a lot about is, you know, there's no evidence of pay to play. And frankly, you know, this is a radio channel, so I'll just say baloney. The simple place to look is Laureate. Laureate Education is trying to go public now. When Peter Schweitzer wrote his great book, Clinton Cash, we didn't have the kind of evidence we have now that Bill and Hillary, because they were married, pulled down $17.6 million from 2010 to 2015 for Bill's part-time work as Chancellor of Laureate Education. In addition, the various financiers around the world who supported the equity and the debt of this gigantic multi-billion-dollar enterprise that was in trouble during the 2008-9 period after it went private in 2007. Many of these people paid gigantic speech payments to Bill and Hillary. And there have been, to date, no connecting of all those dots. So that's, at minimum, $17.6 million paid directly into the Clinton family while Hillary was Secretary of State for 60% of that period. In addition, the IFC, a fund managed by the IFC, that's the International Finance Corporation, and the Korean Sovereign Wealth Fund buttressed this troubled deal by making a $200 million suspect equity investment in January 2013. So that's just one example, I would argue, of pay to play.
Well, let's start at the beginning, though. The Clinton Foundation, $17.6 million raised. Has it benefited or helped anyone in the States, in any country, in Africa?
Well, see, that's not the way the IRS normally looks at this. If you want to create a foundation, a public charity, you have to apply to do a specific set of purposes. The specific set of purposes the Clinton Foundation applied to do were to be a library and presidential archive in Little Rock. They did not apply to do anything internationally. And it's not like you get a driver's license, where you can then drive any car anywhere in the world. If you get an international version, when you apply to operate a charity, the IRS wants you to tell them who's qualified to do what specifically are you going to do. And they want to make sure that you accomplish those purposes. There is no evidence in the domain as of yet that the Clinton Foundation was ever authorized to do anything other than do work in Little Rock. The notion that maybe they may have done something good around the world makes up for this gross error it's actually a gross violation of the rules, is just laughable. It's just not true.
Well, in addition to that, Jonah Goldberg has made this point, this whole good work argument they make. This is like the mob boss who distributes turkeys at Thanksgiving to people that he forces to pay protection money the rest of the year. So your good work in context doesn't look so good, really, in the grand scheme, and I do mean scheme of things, and that's the point. It's a misdirection play from Clinton Inc. But I want to go back to something that you had also previously mentioned, that just in terms of donations received, in terms of the reporting by the donor and the reporting by the Clinton Foundation, in terms of the amount of that donation, there are discrepancies there, too. So just even basic accounting that would be caught by an audit that hasn't been done doesn't jive either.
That's absolutely true. Speaking of your area in Chicago, there's, a man whose political views I don't share, but nonetheless who runs in general, a pretty well-managed foundation. Fred Eichner manages Alphawood Foundation. And starting in 2004, when the Clinton Foundation was not legally authorized to fight HIV/AIDS, and when it certainly wasn't authorized in China, Mr. Eichner, according to the records, gave around $2 million a year for several years for that purpose. And the numbers in the Clinton Foundation filings are hidden on their site. You have to go to Massachusetts to get the 2004 year. Afterwards, there is no filing for the AIDS fighting thing in 2005. The numbers don't square. That's small beer compared to the Gates Foundation, which has given over $200 million to the Clinton Foundation in many years for purposes where the Clinton Foundation was not authorized. And the amounts on the Gates Foundation filings don't foot with the Clinton Foundation filings. And the biggest donor, Unitate, has given over $600 million to the Clinton Foundation. And starting in 2006, none of the numbers foot in the Clinton Foundation with what Unitate believes or claims it's sent towards Little Rock.
You say this is like a part of a vast left-wing conspiracy, kind of paraphrasing Hillary's famous invocation during the Lewinsky scandal, because they can't get away with the lack of required audits and the misreporting of financial contributions and the like without help.
Exactly. And in recent weeks, there's been a growing clamor for a special prosecutor to get to the bottom of it because our own domestic political system is so hobbled by the partisan divide. In truth, actually, you don't need a special prosecutor. Any state attorney general, and more importantly, any foreign government could decide to make an issue of this at any time, and I think they will. I mean, I've begun to start talking to certain state AGs and certain offices and certain foreign governments, and the more that we look at this, the more it becomes likely that one or more of these governments will actually open a serious investigation beyond the ones that have already been mooted by the FBI in league with one or more U.S. attorneys.
Now, Charles, I keep hearing that the Clinton Foundation is based in Canada so they could skirt American law. Is there any truth to that?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Clinton under U.S. law, if you want to operate internationally, you must tightly control your operations from a U.S. base. And starting in around August 2002, the Clintons broke that rule by, I believe, operating out of the Bahamas. They also, as you mentioned, have set up joint ventures in Canada, in Sweden. They control something in the UK. They have multiple subsidiaries around the world. And though they are required under certain state laws to explain this labyrinth so that anybody can follow it, they've never done that. And no accounting firm has ever produced, as I said at the top of this, a legally compliant audit that would allow you to check all these things. So in order for this to operate for more than 20 years, very clearly, government authorities, probably Democrats in key states like your own, have said, we're not going to take on the Clintons.
And the fascinating thing about this, both Schweitzer's book and your work, is this you don't have subpoena power. You're not law enforcement. This is a matter of doing due diligence, accessing public records.
Exactly. And, public charities, I might add, public charities in the United States are one of the things that does indeed make our country great and exceptional. Lots of people, it's the poor people who reach into their pockets and they give money they probably shouldn't give away to a myriad of charities. They expect those charities to be properly run and lawful. And, it should come as a shock, I think, to those listening to this broadcast that a charity operated by two lawyers, and Bill and Hillary are both lawyers from Yale Law School, would be this badly run. It's outrageous.
It's true. I mean, the idea of a couple of lawyers from Yale Law School being unethical is just shocks the conscience. Charles Ortel, financial analyst and watchdog, has done great work on reviewing the Clinton Foundation public filings and identifying trouble areas, as he just described. Charles, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.